Hey everyone, this is Dr. Anthony Griffin, and today I want to share some tricks of using Google Forms in your classroom so that you can make the most of your time and of your students' time, more importantly, to make sure that they're getting the most of their experience while they're with you. So what I have here is something called the show don't tell presentation, and this is the results of the form. And if you look at what the students did, it basically looks like this. This is the form I created, and the show don't tell presentation is what I have the students do to brainstorm for their college essays. I teach 12th grade English, and what I have them do is think about their lives and the experiences they've been through that show who they are rather than telling. And it's a great experience, creates a great bond with my students in the class, it creates a great chemistry and a really wonderful environment of sharing. So when we're looking to do our peer reviews and writing, it really helps set the stage. And it also reveals a lot about our students that we may not know, especially in the beginning of the year. So it's a great icebreaker. It's just overall great lesson. And one of the things that we do is have the students evaluate each other, just give some feedback. And this is not punitive. This is you do it, you get credit. It's just about being honest, and it's about trying to support each other, trying to provide the best feedback possible. And each of these questions is intended to give some feedback about what their peers saw. And once this is all done, the students actually get back all the information from their peers. But before I give it back individually, I give it back as a group and I go over this and I say, wow, we did a pretty good job with introducing ourselves clearly and confidently. And I also say that a lot of thank yous. That's great. And we've a lot of support here. And these are pretty easy things to hit, but they reinforce some of the qualities of good presentations. The other thing that we have is some open-ended responses. The open-ended responses are really good because they provide feedback that's really not possible with just a Likert scale or something like that. And each student will be getting back a breakdown of what was said about their presentation, because what Google does is it allows you to provide a Google form, and you can organize this data and just quickly create new charts for each individual student and give it back to them right in the Google Classrooms page. And again, this is really helpful because sometimes you miss something and the students caught it, and it's usually generally honest. And some teachers are a little hesitant to do something like this because they think maybe somebody will say something rude or insult. And honestly, I've been doing this for probably a good 4 or 5 years now, and I've never had that. In fact, the opposite happens. The trust that you give to the students actually comes back even more, and they really appreciate the fact that you're treating them like adults. And I mean, obviously, you make the call for yourself, for your classroom, because nobody knows better than you do. So the results of this form can be shared as a class and back to the students by just simply making a new form. The other way you can use Google Forms is to help you with outside readings. What I do is over the weekend, I'll have students read, or actually give a whole week for students to read short stories or pieces of a novel. And every Monday, I'll have a Google Form up, and it allows me the time in class for the students to respond to some kind of question or some kind of a thought-provoking idea that the literature would bring up. And this is pretty cool to reinforce things, even if you're doing social studies about some key concepts in history or in math, how to work on some specific things in the classroom or questions students might have over the weekend. And this is really good, again, because you don't have to worry about students having anything identifiable here in front of the class. You can keep it just to just the statements rather than having the students' names connected to them. On a more specific way to use Google Forms is you can have students answer questions that are much more measurable. So you can find out what students are getting and are not getting. And if we're working, for example, with how to use verbs in sentences more clearly and concisely, we use this in class, they do it individually, and then we go over the responses as a class, and they can see where they fit in. In this case, 75% of the students chose a less concise word to complete the sentence. And we can go over this, and this will reinforce that idea so they can begin to hear how clear and concise sentences sound. And this is really helpful because I teach mastery learning, which means that it's not about you got it wrong, you got a 70, and that's the grade that sticks. I want them to get 100. So I have them take it again and again. And eventually, over the course of the school year, we keep scaffolding what we're doing so they become masters of many things. And it's not about, oh, I got a 70 on this test, I can't do any better than that. No, I want you to get 100. And Google Forms does a great job of organizing all of this for me so that when I want to put the grades in, it will go right back to the classroom, and all the stuff that we do can be immediately put back into the classroom. So if I'm looking here and I open up the assignment, I can just have the grades imported if it's an objective test, or I can put the grades as I'm looking through each individual student right into Google Classroom and then right into my gradebook. So Google Forms is a great tool for just quick, simple assessments that you don't have to worry about collecting papers and bringing back papers. And it's also really good to organize everything because the students know exactly how they did and they can see their progress because the grades will continually go up and they have control over it because they can keep taking the test until they get it better. And that to me, that control and that trust in them is a really important piece to this. No matter how or what you're teaching, you're trying to create relationships with your students, and this is a good way to do it. And the technology sometimes can make things easier because it eliminates a lot of time that we used to spend just sifting through papers, creating forms, and now instead spend the time on the actual content that you're worried about or that you want to make sure gets across to students. So I hope this was informative. I hope you're able to pick some things out of it. Again, all of the materials that I'm giving you here, I'll give you copies of it. So if you want to take some of these forms and tweak them, use them directly, they're free for you to take. And I'll ask to just share them. Share them with your colleagues. Let's start making teaching better by working together instead of in isolation and silos. Let's work together. And I think I thank you for all that you do as a teacher, and hope that you come back for the next video. Take care.